Can I tell you something unbelievable to me? I'm standing here by the Dead Sea, this place where Joshua and the Israelites would have crossed over into the Promised Land. Probably a little bit further north where the Jordan flows into the Dead Sea, but still, this would have been the land that they came over and conquered. The Battle of Jericho, the many other battles that they had to conquer this land that God had promised to Moses, but now was giving to Joshua. It was an absolutely unbelievable miracle that now they were standing in the place that God finally allowed them to enter. For generations, they'd waited to be in this place. God had been faithful to them as they wandered in the desert down south. And now finally they're here. They've arrived. Joshua is the man. In Joshua chapter 4, it says that all the people began to look at him with awe as they had once looked at Moses. But I want to point out something specific that we find in Joshua chapter 4. After they'd crossed the Jordan, they finished passing through this place and now are on the other side. And the nation is all standing, the nation of Israel, the 12 tribes are here on the other side of the Jordan by the Dead Sea. And Joshua instructs them, take 12 men from the people, one from each tribe, and commanding them, he said, take 12 stones from here out of the midst of the Jordan, from the very place where the priest's feet stood firmly, and bring them over with you, and lay them down in the place where you lodge tonight. Then Joshua called the 12 men from the people of Israel who he had appointed, a man from each tribe. And Joshua said to them, pass on before the ark of the Lord your God in the midst of the Jordan, and take up each of your stones on his shoulder, according to the number of tribes and the people of Israel, that this may be a sign among you. When your children ask, what is that in time to come? What does this stone mean? Then you shall tell them, the waters of the Jordan were cut before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it passed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off, so that these stones shall be the people's place to remember the favor of the Lord. It's an unbelievable story. They crossed the Jordan, so many of them, all of their stuff with them. They get to this place and the priest's feet hit on dry ground. God provided for them in the desert, and God provided a way for them to enter the Promised Land. You know, each and every one of us need to remember the times that God has been faithful. I know for me, He's been faithful more times than I can even count. It overwhelms my heart when I think about the goodness of God, and it should overwhelm yours as well. But we're forgetful people. Too often we go on with our life and we forget just how faithful He's been. And Joshua knew that would happen, and so he instructed them to take a stone, each and every one of them, to grab a stone and sleep with it in their camp that night. And then he says, I want you to pass in front of the Ark of the Covenant the next morning. And they passed by the Ark of the Covenant, the very place that represented the presence of God. And then he said, I want you to take these stones and I want you to set them down. And I want this to be a mound of memory of God's faithfulness. And when your children pass by these 12 stones, one for each tribe, and they say, Dad, what's that stone about? You quickly tell them, that's because the Lord was faithful. He was faithful to help us cross the Jordan. And certainly the stories had to flow from there as they talked about His faithfulness time and time and time again in the desert. Listen, I know the Lord is faithful to you. He's faithful to me. He's faithful even when we're faithless. And may we set up stones in our life, ways to remember His faithfulness, so that we may always sing of His worship and His praise in our hearts because of all that He's done for us. He is forever faithful.